Put it back on the stand, Kiefer. Put it back on the stand.
Is it ready? It's really close. It's only gonna get me if it's right there. There we go.
When I was about 5, out where the hospital used to be, down the hill, there used to be the house. That was the house I grew up in when I was real little.
There was a house down there?
Mm-hmm.
Next to that shed?
Mm-hmm. And out behind there was a couple of lakes, field, timber, but there's this little grassy area. And in that grassy area, they had Chinook quail, which were endangered at the time. And when I was real little, I was like, let me go out there. That timing. Like, let me go out there, I want to see them. And they're like, you leave the Chinook quails alone, they're endangered. Well, one day I had it in my head I was going to get out there. And long story short, I like to consider myself part of getting rid of the Chinook quails.
How so?
Well, their eggs are like, you think they're super bouncy, and they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you single-handedly feel like you killed all the quail?
No, I had a part in making that species extinct.
Just out of one nest?
Well, there was a lot.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell me this to tell me what?
Because he said, let's talk about what you love to do.
Okay, fair enough. You love to finish off endangered species.
No, I like to have a part of history.
Oh, you like to have a part of history.
Yeah,
So that's your
big
pastime.
difference, yeah.
Well, the real question that I wanted to ask you was, and I've had this conversation with a few different people, both around my age and people that are older. I think people that are older tend to agree with me more than people my age, or at least in the last few years. But is there ever a thought that it's actually easier to do the things that I will say, we're going to say that you love to do, but I would say it's almost like, would you prefer to actually have your life depend on doing something that I'll call maybe like a serious hobby versus doing whatever current job you're actually doing? So like, let me rephrase this. So what is your actual job, Kiefer?
I feel like you're gonna out me for being a musician with a serious hobby. And that's not how we think about it. No, so my job is I run a small marketing company, so I do digital marketing for people. With the school, I'm contracted on with the marketing and fundraising.
Right.
And then I just help out when and where I can,
Right.
just for the fun of it.
So marketing is your job.
Mhm.
Actually is your livelihood. When you're 9 years old, did you tell yourself, when I grow up, I want to be starting my own small marketing company?
No, I wanted to be a doctor, and I did that all the way up till like applying to med schools and stuff.
Yeah. So whenever I was young, the first thing that I can remember like being serious and passionate about was probably acting.
And I tell you, you need to chase that dream, dude. I've seen you act in videos.
I know, but I'm 34 and not in great shape. I don't know. It seems too late, and we're in the middle of nowhere. I don't think it's gonna work.
Well, you're not going to be the next Ryan Gosling.
You wanna know
if that's
something-
what you're thinking.
Right. You want to know something that's interesting though? I've been getting a bunch of stuff on my Facebook about Kansas City acting and directing and producing, calls, schooling, all this type of stuff, which is weird because I don't feel like I really ever look into it much anymore.
Yeah. Do you ever see the Backstage? It's like an app for.
I'm
acting.
familiar with Backstage, I guess, but I thought we always used it for music.
No, you're thinking Band Mix, I think.
No, I don't think so. I thought that there was always something called Backstage. I don't know.
It probably has both, but I saw an ad for it one time, and I created a thing just to like see what like a casting call looked like.
Yeah.
And now I like every day get emails emails about it, and I never like unsubscribe because sometimes I'm like, maybe I should just like actually look at it, and I don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
One time I did get a call from somebody that wanted me to do porn.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you hired him to sing for One Headlight High?
No.
The same guy?
No. I was 19
Mm-hmm.
probably whenever I got called. And I was just like, I doubt it. And he was like, well, this person was like, why not? And I was just like, well, I mean, I have a girlfriend. He's like, well, that's fine. You can do it with her. And my girlfriend at the time would have been like 17. So I was like, I don't know if that's okay or not. He's like, oh, no, it's fine.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's really weird.
Somebody like
I don't-
local or?
No, I didn't know the number. And I don't even remember what the person's name was. I don't know if they
How'd they
gave me a name. I don't know. It's probably total spam. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever had
Weird.
happen. I was at work one day. They maybe text first, called, and then text. I don't know. And it wasn't the last time that they asked. Like, they asked for a couple weeks or something.
Weird.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. But my problem with acting was that, so obviously I told my parents. My parents like, well, okay, we'll support that. So they took us, I don't remember if it was still the Missoula people
Yeah,
back then. I mean, I know
I did
they
that.
still come around.
I don't know if they still do.
Do
It's
it,
still a thing, but I don't know if they come
Here
here.
anymore. The one I was doing was at Rockport, and I don't know if it was Missoula or not. And I'm trying to remember what year it was. Maybe 2000, something like that.
Oh.
I feel like I was maybe 10, right around that age. And so my parents signed me up for the thing, and I went to like 2 days of it, and it was all musical oriented, and it was my first year, and all they wanted me to do was dress as, I can't remember what play we were doing, but they just wanted me dressed as like a tree and dance and sing. And I was like, no, I want to act. I don't want to dance and sing. And like, people ask me all the time, they're like, so let me get this straight. You love to play music, you love acting, but you don't like musicals. I'm like, no, music and theater, in my opinion, should be separate.
Yeah.
Now, once in a while, I've gone and seen some musicals that I liked, like professionally done musicals. Like, we went to Phantom of the Opera one time in Las Vegas. It was awesome. But of course, I grew up watching that, so I'm expecting music. The thing I don't like about traditional musicals is I don't like whenever story parts get sung.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like in Disney, I was never a huge fan of the songs, but it didn't really bother me because they weren't exactly like taking away from dialogue necessarily. But like in musical plays and stuff, some of it is like you can have an whole act that's almost all sung, and I hate that.
That might be why I like Pixar more.
Oh yeah,
I think one the movies are better,
well, yeah, I
But-
agree though. I like Pixar.
but there's none of
Staying
that
ahead of Disney.
singing.
Yeah.
I like that.
I was trying to think too, like my favorite Disney movie might be like 101 Dalmatians. I don't think there's a
Really?
song in that.
Have you seen Cars 2?
Yes, I've seen Cars 2. And you know what? I watched Cars 1 again over the weekend.
Yeah.
Put it on for Robbie.
And you're like, this ain't no Cars
Simon
2.
a little bit. You're exactly right. I was like,
Yeah.
Cars 1 is just so good.
Oh.
And like, I don't know who to have this conversation with. It's not you because you don't have kids yet, but like something about whenever, after I started having kids, for lack of a better term, I sometimes like movies, like certain dramatic emotional scenes in movies, shows sometimes, but definitely movies, especially old movies that I've watched, really turn me into a little bit of a bitch now. Like,
Oh,
I
really?
It does play with my heartstring
You
emotions
should
a little
record
more
your-
than it ever used to.
You should record yourself watching Bridge to Terabithia.
I don't think that would do it. It might.
I think you should now that you're a
Think
dad.
so. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I don't like songs in anything really.
Yeah.
Unless it's like this is Spinal Tap where it's like based around like somebody like doing music.
It's funny that you say that. So we've always talked about my idea of we've always talked about bounce ideas for shows off each other. And if I were to sit down and write a show, like I had a couple projects in my mind that come up, and I think like there's a couple that I've forgotten, which is such a bummer, but the one that always sticks out to me is I want to do a show about a band. And different people have tried to do shows about bands, but they always try to get really wrapped up in the music portion of it.
Yeah.
But you can't fake it. So like whenever I'm watching a show that's about a band, like anything that has the music in it, I'm like, this is not good. This doesn't feel like real chemistry. It doesn't feel like really playing music. Like
Your guitars aren't plugged into
in
anything.
Yeah, I mean, I can get around the headspace of that, but like, there was a show called God, FX had it, and I don't know how long it made it. I know it had Dennis Leary in it, and they were like, I want to say that they were in a rock band that had been losing popularity, and I think it was Dennis Leary's daughter could sing in the show, and she was like in her mid-20s or early 20s, and begged to let her start singing for the band, and I cannot remember the name of it. Drug, Sex, and Rocks and Roll. That's exactly what it was called. Yeah, I don't know if you remember it. It was pretty short-lived. I would watch, my mom was like, I think you might like this, so I'd sit down and watch it with her, and every time, because they had so many scenes of them playing and trying to fake chemistry and fake sing and fake play, and I was just like, I can't watch that.
Growing up watching Drake and Josh, I knew Drake could actually play, but the bands that would be behind him, like in the scenes and stuff, would always just like, nothing was plugged in, and it drove me bonkers.
No. Just like music videos, basically, but they're trying to pass it off to you. Like, I guess there's something about a music video that you don't care as much about the authenticity because you're mostly listening to the song.
When we did that zombie video, we weren't gonna bring the chords or anything, remember? And I threw a fit about it.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because we were like, no, it's just play. I was like, no, we're not doing. I hate that.
Yeah,
I remember.
They know we're not playing. They know it's just tracked over it.
Bums me out though when I see it.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. No, would you rather act in somebody else's show or like act in your own show?
I don't know. See, because I think of a lot about that whenever I think about like the way I want to do this show. But the problem is like, I don't know if what I think in my mind is I might be better served as like a writer director than I would be as, say, actually acting in it. I probably would act in it. I think it would get very hard for me to choose my character, and I'm not like above collaborations. Like if we were to do this in a group, like I don't have a problem with that at all. But like my problem would be is I would have a vision for something. You would hope that the actor could pick up what you're wanting. And then like whenever I think about like different characters and parts kind of in my head or who I want to base stuff on, like I really worry that
Too apparent?
no, I don't worry about that too much, but I really worry that I worry that I couldn't do what I want to do with it a little bit. I worry about which character would I actually want to play, because like you have visions for all those characters, so like, and you obviously can't play them all. So like how would you pick that character? Like I would probably have to have somebody else pick which character I'm playing. I would prefer, like, I don't know necessarily that I would totally base a character off myself, but it would be hard. I could see where it would be hard to, if there is a character based off yourself, not play that person. I could also see where you'd be really good at playing somebody else, but you might not like watching somebody else play you or your basis of a character.
Yeah. If you
know what I
wrote
mean?
it where you're writing it that it's you and you're like, you need to show that character a little bit more respect.
Well, or no, I don't worry so much about that, but like just, I don't know. And then like characters that come in my head, like I don't know if I can pull it off perfectly. I would hope that I could find an actor that like I can kind of, I guess, direct and they would do a better job type thing. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I feel like it would be a lot of work to do both.
Yeah, I always thought that the five of us would be good at like our own like Always Sunny or something, where everybody's kind of like plays himself, but in a mocked up sort of way.
Yeah, just an overly dramatic, over the top sort of way. Yeah, I would do that. There's certain people I know that I would want to base characters off of, and it would be really important to me that they get it right.
Yeah.
Like whenever I think about it, like you can't, like there's certain ones where like, unless you're doing it, it's hard to explain, but like I don't want it to be too over the top because it turns into like something that's like, no, you're missing the point. Like the person needs to be not over the top, but they can't be like too mundane or come out stupid sounding either. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's like rhythms of the way people do things or like the way they act that you see all the time that you feel like you could do a good job of, but then I don't know, if you watch yourself, you probably hate it, you know.
I would imagine for a while. I feel like that's just something you get used to seeing though, and learning like how to
Yeah.
watch and improve and
Yeah.
critique yourself.
Yeah, well, actually, do you ever listen to actors talk? Like, a lot of them. So, and that's the other thing with acting, which gets us kind of the thought on the show. But like, so I listen to like Conan O'Brien or watch interviews with a bunch of people or listen to them on podcasts or whatever. But like, I've noticed that a number of them don't actually prefer to watch themselves.
Yeah.
They actually don't feel like they do that great of a job when they watch themselves, which. I mean, I could relate to that sometimes whenever you watch videos of us playing and stuff. It's like, oh my
But I
God.
mean, if you're an actor and
We're watching this stuff sometimes.
Yeah. But if you're like an actor and you're watching Will Smith movies and he's killing it,
Right.
and then you get up and do, I don't know, whatever movie you're doing, like you're gonna compare yourself and you're gonna feel bad.
Yeah. Like we used to try to compare ourselves to like other bands all the time that were
can't
like
do that.
in this. I know you can't. You just can't. No different than if we were trying to compare this podcast to another
I
podcast.
would say like the JRE,
Yeah.
you know, I
You
think
think
that-
we're that good?
or Your Mom's House,
I don't know that one.
Tom and his wife, Segura.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Christy-
Yeah, I don't
Christy?
listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think we're comparable.
Yeah, probably. Whitney Cummings.
Yeah, I just don't think we have the budget to buy all the fans like they have.
I know, it'd be nice, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? I know. But to get kind of back to the basis of what I have cooked in my head, I know I've explained it to you a couple times, but like I would never actually have any footage under any circumstance of that band playing any music.
Up to the green room, like leaving the green room.
It would take, yeah, so it would take, or coming back in. It would literally take place in my mind in a van, in a studio, in green rooms. It would take place probably in alleyways next to like vans, buses. It would be all pretty much dialogue based to some degree, or you know, I would show scenes of them like doing things in their regular lives.
I think
But-
it would be nice to see a show that, for a band that talks about how much of a pain in the ass it is getting everybody to show up at the right time,
So
or just any time.
anytime, yeah. And then like I wouldn't probably show practices much. Like I would definitely show like everything that goes on like after a practice or in a break during a practice
Yeah.
or something like that. And then the vision I had for it was to take the band and start them really, like the first season would be like really low. Like they're in a crappy van with a crappy, trailer. Probably similar to some bands we played with, or maybe like the next tier up, like maybe
Yeah.
like your 4 Year Strongs or people like that that are making an okay living, or maybe just under an okay living to a decent living, and then work their way up to.
I think 4 Year Strong's making more than you think.
I think they're making less than you think, though.
I've been around and doing some of the things. I think people get paid a lot more, especially because I know they're signed, but I think their deal's different now. They're like
Well, I don't, but I mean,
60.
you're talking about now versus like 8 years ago too.
Yeah, you're right.
But like, I just mean like bands that are still touring. It would start with them still touring in a band, pretty
Yeah,
much,
fair.
and trying to build up, and then build all the way up to where the way it works is like, basically work their way from the bottom to huge success, and just tell that whole story over season.
That would be fun.
And then start in like a crappy,
Yeah,
low budget studio, low budget shows, and move them up into.
have an episode where they learn what a 360 deal is, and they're like, "What in the hell is this? Did we
Yeah.
sign?"
Yeah, that'd be good. So I would definitely need some consulting a little bit on stuff like that. But
Yeah, you let me know. I'll consult the heck
But-
out of you.
the only reason that I would argue with you about like how much money they're making, like, did you ever read like, I don't know, like any books on Nirvana, any books on Motley Crue, any books on like just any band really.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys have like severe drug problems, and people around them are embezzling.
Well, I mean, sort of at times. So like the way that the common theme that I've found with all that, even your large bands, is like there's plenty of money as long as you're working. As soon as you're not working, money dries up real fast.
I don't know about that. The bass player for Van Halen, what is his name?
Wolfgang.
No, the other one.
I don't
I
know.
can't. Michael.
Mhm.
Michael Anthony. Yeah.
Mhm.
I see his videos on Facebook.
Mhm.
He is living the craziest life.
Yeah, he's probably working all the time.
He's not though.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he's with Sammy Hagar sometimes.
Yeah, but does he do any studio work?
No,
None.
none. What's
Ever.
up? Ever.
I'd be interested to look at all that
I
up.
will look it up right now, dude.
Maybe
My
it's different.
computer's not.
But I don't know, like, have you ever looked at, like, I don't know, like the all-time low guys' living arrangements?
They're modest.
Yeah, because that's what they can afford.
Well, they're marketing to children.
So it doesn't matter who you're marketing to.
Yeah, I don't. That bummed me out though, because I'm a huge all-time low,
Low
fan.
fan, yeah,
was
I mean-
these guys should be full of money.
Or, like, do you ever, like, you probably don't on Facebook, do you ever follow, like, Charles and Hallie? And he's, I believe, the bassist from We the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they live a decent life, but
Yeah, but We the Thing's more of like Kings are more of like a fad band, as all-time lows stuck around.
I would say they live similar.
Really?
Yeah, or like Real Friends, those guys. In fact, they're probably a little bit worse. They all pretty much had like condos or whatever for a modest amount from
Yeah.
some of the documentaries or whatever I watched on them. I can't remember why I watched that or what it was on, but it was showing.
Knees.
Huh?
I said bony knees.
Bony knees. Yeah, yeah. I can't remember. Like, you'd be surprised, I think. I think that in general, people see kind of like what ticket prices are and how busy they are, and it's just like, wow, they're making really good money, but the percentage that the band actually makes off of all of that just significantally gets
Well, it
cut down.
depends on the deal, and it's not that they are missing out on the money, because that money is given to them up front.
Mhm.
And a 360 deal is basically you sign a bank loan through a marketing
through
company.
marketing company,
Yeah.
or a label,
Yeah.
or both. Sometimes you have to
Basically
do both.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they give you the money up front, so it's not like you're lacking the money.
No, but
Just-
you have to pay it back.
Yeah, but you're doing that each show.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
But when you bomb, it sucks ass. You know what I
Bombing
mean?
sucks ass regardless.
Well, no, I know, but like you just and like people would get upset about the pay to play methods, right? But like they're also taking that money to rent the space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how the space is making money. So it's not like using the space is free. It's not like the people that have the venue are just like, oh yeah, fuck, come on in. We'll just work off
Use the
liquor
bar,
sales.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I am curious how much like.
Not to be confused with like, not like, because my argument with like local bar owners that want cover bands and stuff, like they try to treat it like it's.
Big
Once
time.
people started finding out that there's like what we're going to refer to as pay to play options, they start to turn every business into that. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't work
Yeah.
at a certain level, at a certain low level of money, you know.
Yeah, the pay to play you have to have a following.
Right. Yes. Which is essentially what you're doing in a large band.
Yeah.
Making sure that you can fill that space at wherever you travel to
Yeah. It's not
after paying for use of that space.
true. I don't know. All that's weird how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Because TV, growing up, you just thought it was so easy. You just grabbed a guitar,
Well,
wrote some
yeah.
songs.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, which is fun to talk about in saying, you know, so like I think everybody's kind of overall thought process is if you're gonna be a professional musician, or I mean really a professional anything, but in this case we'll just use musician, like it's just like, well, I just pick up my guitar and I go play and I make money. And they don't realize it's like, no, all that stuff gets run exactly like the corporation that you're working for. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you've got managers that have to get paid. You've got stage people that have to get paid. You've got to pay for trucking, which I don't know anybody who knows what trucking costs right now, but it's out fucking outrageous. Like, you have to obviously pay for equipment, which understand there's sponsorships that can replace some of it, you know. You always have to pay for hotels, or you have to pay for whatever RV you're traveling around in. Again, more gas cost on top of trucking everything that it's got to go to. You have to pay the people that set up the stage if it's like one of those not full-time venues with a stage. I'm trying to think what else that goes into all of it.
Most people travel with at least 1 or 2 stagehands now.
Yeah,
It's
of their own.
yeah,
Yeah, and then you have an entire team that actually, like, if you have to build the stage, it's a different team of people that come in and build the stage. You know, you have a completely different group usually that you've hired to do sound, so you got to pay for sound. Like, it's just,
it sounds not cheap.
it's not cheap. That's my
We'll,
point.
we'll do things even this summer where we're doing something big enough that we're renting out the sound, and we have a fee on top of that when we book, like you should. But even then, it cuts in quite a bit.
Yeah.
You don't realize, but that's the price of paying to sound good, because we already look good.
Yeah,
The other part is sounding good.
sounding good. Yeah, and like so many people don't understand what goes into sound, especially people that run venues, as I'm gonna put it in air quotes. They consider themselves a venue because they have a stage with some outlets on it, maybe some lights.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's nice. That's you know, and like you'd get into these gigs where like, well, can you guys just use 2 separate sound systems? Like, if you
No.
want the show to take 7 hours, and you don't mind a 3-hour break in between or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's difficult to.
It's always crazy to me. You have the places where like the owner runs the sound for it, or like the manager, somebody that like is in the place, and they don't do a good job of it. And I'm like, you do the same sound in the same space constantly, like
Yeah. Usually there's 2 or 3 or 4 of them that alternate, but yeah.
yeah. There's some other places that do that.
Yeah. But I digress. But yeah, that was always the idea for my show. Acting was probably the first thing that I wanted to do. And then I was going to tell you, I tried to do drama in high school. I would not do the musical because I didn't want to sing, basically, which I know. But so I did, I'm trying to think, like freshman and sophomore year. I don't really know why I didn't take drama, other than I remember at times it would be a little bit crowded for the plays that they would want to do. And I know for sure my junior year, there was enough people still in the drama department that had been doing it for a while, and the option was basically like you had to try out in order to get into it, because they'd only let so many in the class. Because what would happen is people would say, I want to join drama, and they wouldn't want to act, and then they wouldn't do any of the backstage stuff. They'd just have a fuck around period. You know what I mean? So they started kind of limited in that to exactly what they needed. My junior year, they had told me that we all had to try out. I think that Casey wanted me to do it that year, and I got really sick or something, like during the tryouts or something like that, and like I had a girlfriend that wanted to do it too at the same time, and my junior year would have been a freshman, so she wasn't going to make the cut. So she wasn't super excited about me doing it and her not, I think. And so Casey came to me like the week after tryouts after I'd been feeling better. He's like, are you going to try out? And I was like, probably not. I missed tryouts. He's like, I don't care. Just come in and read something for me.
Yeah.
And we'll take care of it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So
Mr. Cool Dude.
I know, stupid dude is a better term for that, because I should have done it, and I'm kicking myself for not. And then senior year, first year that I did do drama, there were less, so it was pretty much everybody that wanted in that year got in. It's kind of a bummer, because I think I would have done really well with some of the other kids in the class above me that were pretty good and had been doing it for so long. But we just sat down and did a table read, and he was just like, do you want to try reading the lead? And I was like, yeah, I think I can do that or whatever. We did one table read, and he's just like, it's obviously for you. You're doing great." And he was super happy. And I remember him. He was constantly telling me, he was like, "You should have been doing it all 4 years." And I was just like, "I don't, whatever, for whatever reason, I just didn't." And it really bummed me out. It was something I kind of wanted to pursue initially, whenever I was leaving high school, but I didn't at all.
Yeah.
And then I'd always like Casey and Mark and like Deb, Casey's mom, and some of them would occasionally, and I think it was similar to what like Christina and some of them are doing now. They would occasionally go out and do like these little shows like over at Rockport or wherever. And I had always intended, like, if Casey and Mark were doing one like they used to, I'd always meant to ask and go back and do some with them, but I never did, and they kind of quit doing them, I think. It's definitely something I want to ask Mark if we get him on about, but
now, I always thought like doing improv at like this local level would be good, just because you don't have to deal with the set or anything.
Yeah, improv would be tough, I would think.
Oh, you have to use your imagination, and that's
quickly though too, not just.
And I feel like that's what stops a lot of people from being good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't think that I could do it. I don't know if I could. There's times it would not be I feel like the consistency and quality would just be ridiculous. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's just like being in a band, just having the chemistry with the people you're with.
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of like watching like those dueling piano guys that just take like suggestions and they could literally just go, "Yeah, all right, I pretty much know what I'm doing." You know what I mean? You have to be that good, and I've always had to work at things to be good at it. You know what I mean? What?
I feel like you could do it.
Maybe. I don't know.
I've always thought about like acting. So my thing is I love art. I don't care so much about paintings or drawings because I can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I can't do it. So, and I've always been that way. Like finger painting when I was little, I never could get what I wanted out of my head.
Yeah.
But I knew that I grew to learn that there's different mediums for art. So when I watch TV shows or different things where you see good acting, it really, I think about it, or like comedians, I think about like the setup, what causes that misdirection so much, and same with music. So I've always wanted to do like acting, stand up, and like music. Yeah.
Yeah, that myself too, and even whenever I still watch really good shows, like you were just talking about, like it's the older I get, the more I think it is that I don't know that I necessarily. I mean, I kind of covet the ability to go out and professionally act, but what I more covet, I think, is, at least on like a really good show like you're talking about with really good energy, I think I really covet that type of work environment where it is 100% creative. Everybody's working together. I mean, you have a vision that you have to work on together, and you've got producers and writers and directors that want something to happen, but you want to work on one of those shows where it's like you're such a good. I feel like people want to throw around like best friends whenever you find a good show. Like everybody's always just so concerned about whether freaking all 6 of the cast members are still best friends. It's like, well, I'm sure they still consider each other friends, but they don't work together anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to basically, I think what people, whenever they want that, are trying to fantasize that basically Ross, Monica, Joey, Rachel, Phoebe, they all really exist through the actors that play them, but like they all have other jobs with other people, and it's like, I think when they get together, like they obviously get along and miss each other, but like there'd be no, like, has anybody here ever worked with a great coworker, but then you no longer work for that company, or they leave the company, or you don't even do the same thing anymore? Like, how often are you checking in on those people that you worked really, really good and closely with? It's not that often. I
don't even check in with my best friends on how they're doing.
Perfect.
And I don't ever assume there's any animosity towards it.
Right, exactly.
I don't.
There's not. Yeah. There's not. Like, once in a while, I was texting a guy that I was really good friends with for a number of years when we worked north of town at Farmer City. Worked on farther up north in Iowa. Whenever we were working together, they had a new site, and it was only a couple hours away, so we did a lot of stuff back and forth, and we went to trainings and stuff together. And I will talk to that guy, and there were 3 guys up there that we were pretty close working with. I'll talk to one of them maybe once a year.
Yeah.
I have an old friend whenever we first started working out there with my first company that I kept up with for a long time. He would still show up and visit us once in a while when he was coming back because he is all over the place. I used to talk to him usually once or twice a year. I don't think I've talked to him in 3 years.
Yeah.
Basically. You know, it's just, you know, whenever that person's not really in your life anymore and you're not doing the same thing, which we've always talked about, how easy it is to relate to people with a common goal who is also pulling their weight towards that common goal. It's real easy, but when you're not doing that anymore, it's kind of hard to connect in the same way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when you're not with somebody every day, like, you grow to have different interests, so it's harder to connect when you come back, especially after a few years.
Yeah, you just kind of end up, it's not unlike a class reunion. It's kind of the same thing. Like, you ever look at somebody that was in your class and you don't really talk to them regularly, once in a while, maybe at an alumni or a class reunion. You spend most of those times talking about things that took place back whenever you used to be in each other's lives all the time. But like, do you ever have classmates or people around your class like on Facebook and you look at them and you just go, I don't really know that person anymore. I know who that person was 15 years ago, but I don't really know who that person is now.
I do that with people from Olive Garden. I'm like, I'll see they'll post on Snapchat. If I actually like just don't scroll through my Snapchat stuff, I'll be like, what a way you're living right now.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even like there's a handful of people that I was really close to, like maybe middle school through the end of high school to some degree. And now that we're 30 some plus, you know, I just look at it, it's like, I don't have anything in common with that person. I kind of don't even really know that person, you know?
Yeah, and that's life. You don't have to keep knowing people. It's weird to me because I know people like get upset if somebody doesn't text them to like check in or if something happens in their life. Why didn't you check in on me? Like, people are busy with their own stuff. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's just life.
Everybody's up here.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day. And you're only like, whatever's close to you is what's easiest to manage. Once in a while, you have little periods where you can kind of manage farther out.
Yeah.
But you don't a lot.
But I feel like, and maybe you can answer this, but is that peering out's a lot harder to do once you have kids? Because when you're peering out, you're probably more concerned about like the kids around your kid, right?
I don't know. I kind of, I mean, yes and yes. I would say that that's sort of kind of true. I think that living here makes it easier because
you know everybody.
To some extent. So, I also think living here sometimes hinders that though a little bit because you can sometimes start to think too into
somebody's past.
Or just how they are. You know, you can go to a place where you assume the worst out of somebody all the time because of some period where you knew how they were at some time ago, but it's really not any different than what we were just talking about. It's like, just because I know how this person behaved 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago doesn't mean that my child's not safe with them. You know what I mean? They obviously have their own child who is safe every day. You know what I mean? So, and I think sometimes when you know each other too well, it can play a factor. But then I don't know, and I assume this is an issue too, but like, could you imagine being in a giant city where
you don't know nobody?
You know nobody, and your kid wants to hang out with somebody else's kid? Like, I
don't like that.
Not to go down the whole exorcism route thing again. Yeah, not this early, but like that newest Exorcist film, like these girls are hanging out and they disappear and the parents barely know each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that sucks. I can't imagine how
that movie was pretty good.
Yeah, but I can't imagine how you would feel. Like, you're like, I looked on a fucking high school directory to find some people's number because that's the first time I ever talked to them, yet our kids hang out all the time. Not only at school, but outside of school. Like, that'd be
in a drainage ditch.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that would be weird to me.
Yeah.
What was the next thing? So the first thing you wanted to do was?
First thing I wanted to do was music.
Music, okay.
Yeah.
Acting for me, then I would say what was first? first? I don't know, either music or football, probably. It's probably about the same age. I was just probably getting in. I was probably a little bit more into football, just a little bit earlier than I was playing music. Other than like I obviously did band and played piano and all that stuff, and I liked it okay. But I know at that time I wasn't sitting down going, "Well, this is what I want to do with my life." I think that really happened like later junior high, early high school.
Yeah. Well, I grew up to stories of my dad in the '60s traveling in not a van, but a RV, a plane,
Camper.
different things.
Yeah.
Like actually doing it, and him traveling all over the United States. And I just grew up like, that's got to be just so easy to do. You know, just how he talked about it. He's like, I just played bass and danced around. I couldn't sing, so I didn't get a mic.
Yep.
I was like, that's easy.
Sounds like sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I do that on a very, very small level.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think, like, so right now I'm guessing it's fairly relaxed, right? Because you guys are working towards something, but you've hit a nice little niche spot where you're finding work fairly easy. You're making money, but it's not your primary job. So if you...
This is Tyler's primary job.
Right, yeah, which is impressive. I'll give him that.
It's tough.
It's tough to have that kind of confidence and make things work.
A lot of people, what they don't see is how hard all of us work when we're not on stage. We'll travel in a van and spend 3 hours talking about what a beginning part of a song should sound like that we never write.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, we work so hard. Writing songs is a pain in the butt because I want to try every possible route. So we'll even come down to just like drum hits, like do an intro of like bop bop compared to ba da ba ba, and let's do that over and over and over, and then let's get rid of both those ideas and do something else.
Yeah.
I want to exhaust what we can to try to make the most creative, to make us the most creative, but also we're talking about how do we get sponsorships? How are we going to get somebody to sponsor this show? How are we putting on our own shows and growing that event?
Yeah.
What sort of vendors are we going to have? What do you think of this merch? And then we'll go through 20 different designs of merch before we get a good one. You know?
So I don't know, did you talk to, what's the Jonas Brothers dad's name? It's Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's
Kevin.
a kid Kevin and a dad
Yeah,
Kevin.
I talked to Kevin for a long time.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
So you remember what he said? Did you take away the biggest thing that he said about what it took?
Oh boy.
Your goddamn problems. Yeah.
Nah, what was it?
You've got to find somebody with money to back you.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So like if you're gonna be in Omaha and you're doing really good, you need to get the attention of like a Sid Dillon, or you need to get the attention of a. And he said this. He's like, it could be a car dealer, it could be a lawyer, it could be just somebody out there that invests and tries to make money.
Yeah.
And he said that eventually is pretty much what you're gonna have to do
Yeah.
to make all that stuff work, and that's tough sometimes.
For smaller events, it's a lot easier to do. Some of the people that we know that have sponsorships that are bigger don't really answer when you talk about it, or don't really give you any leeway.
Right.
And I
I
think
sometimes with booking, and
it's gatekeeping.
yes, it's gatekeeping.
And when people ask anybody, of us anyway, any questions, we try to be as honest with them as we can, because their music's not our music.
Yeah.
It's their success isn't going to hurt us.
Right. Because it's not. I think initially people treat it like it's competition, and it's not competition that fosters gatekeeping behavior. It's the fact that it's not your money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that it's coming from somewhere that like you legitimately can't tell another band like, we have X, Y, and Z fucking partnership that owns, they might own anything. They might own a car dealership. They might own, something, right? Like
some of them,
they're
I
just
know,
trying to make extra money.
I know they approach the people for the sponsorship, and we're like, what was that conversation like? Because it is different compared to fundraising for like the school or something, because it's different when it's just like 5 dudes in a band drinking beer.
Yep.
I don't know. There's a lot more work that we do that nobody ever sees. And we get along very well. And it's easy for Tyler to delegate any sort of thing to the band. And I know we get people that might say stuff behind our back, or like there's some jealousy, but we all work very well together.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in bands, and I'm sure you've been in bands where you didn't really care for the people. I was in one. We went to Texas and talked to Kevin a couple years ago. I couldn't stand any of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been pretty fortunate not to really have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But the problem is that like you said, you've got to find a group that. There's 2 avenues. You've got to find a group of people that work really, really good together, like you guys are, or you've got to find somebody to manage it, and then that person's going to manage it. And you're going to find 2 or 3 people in the band that carry out that management.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
management gets expensive.
Every band normally will have 2 people that are pushing the way.
Right.
And I'm not talking about the Tyler band, because normally in that situation, when it's somebody's name, that one person is pushing everything and doing everything itself. But in a regular band, there's 2 people normally pushing everything, and the other guys are just kind of there playing music.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's weird ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's most common. Well, see, and so what we're describing is similar to anywhere that you work.
Yeah.
There's always, depending on the size of the department or whatever you work in, there's always a handful, like, let's just say 2, 3 to maybe 5, depending on the size, that really knock it out of the park. And then you've got bodies that are just doing kind of the same mundane things over and over again that aren't maybe what some people would consider pulling their weight as well as maybe the top 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And that's gone on everywhere that I've worked. You almost always see that.
True. Do you ever miss trying to book shows, doing all that fun stuff?
I don't know.
You can say no.
Well, it's tough because, like, the easy ones that you could book without any really issues, it's like fine, great, whatever. Like, I can pretty much always play at this place pretty much whenever I want to, right? Getting the occasional show that felt like it was outside of your element always felt great.
Yeah.
But also working to get those and not getting them also sucked. So, like,
True.
it's just, I think it's like anything in life. Like, whenever you're being really successful at something, it feels great. Whenever you're not, it really sucks.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter what you're doing, in my opinion.
I had somebody not that long ago, we were talking, and goes, I'm not gonna get up on stage and be like Mr. Cool rock star dude. I'm just gonna stand there, play my show.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that statement for any level?
I don't know. I mean, I guess my initial thought is, first of all, it's going to take away from the chemistry. And I think people don't understand how important that chemistry is for a show. Because when you're doing a show, you're putting on a show. So it kind of back to acting, like everything I did in One Headlight High was pretty much an act.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's some of it's me. There's part of me in it, but it's not how I behave generally, right?
So I always say it's an exaggerated version of myself.
Yeah, or beyond if you're really good. Like, you can really get like really good actors, really good whatever. People that are putting on some type of show can really go to places that aren't who they are, but you believe that it is, right?
Yeah.
So, and like I've always talked about, like everything that I would do in the show, in between songs, all that type of stuff. Like, I haven't done that in so long. I don't think I'm good at it anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm probably passable or, fine enough, but not as good as I was whenever we were playing constantly, right?
Oh, no.
So, I mean, I guess you want, so like in your opinion, like in your case, so like, I mean, if the guy's not screwing the music up and he's playing really well, it's probably okay. It's probably going to lead you somewhere that's going to get shitty though, is the problem. Regardless of where they're playing, it's going to start fucking your show up. It's going to start fucking up your chemistry. It's going to start making one part of the band look bizarre, or the whole part of the band look bizarre. Like that side of the stage isn't going to be visually pleasing, stuff like that. And you need that. Now you don't want somebody to totally compromise playing well for showmanship. You know what I mean? Like that's that fine line. So you're asking me if I think that it, like, how would I treat that? I would probably let it go on for a while and see how it actually is. But if it's causing problems, you'd have to move on from that.
Yeah.
You know.
I work really hard.
Yeah.
To like be entertaining. It's not natural.
I think it has to be a little natural.
But no, just hearing that, I just think about like, because people don't want to watch you just sit there and play guitar or play the bass. You know, they want to be entertained. Like if you want to just do bar shows forever, like you're just gonna be a live DJ.
Yeah,
basically what you are. But if you're trying to do like shows, you gotta put on a show.
Oh yeah. You've got to have lights. You've got to have some movement. The only problem is sometimes you need less movement than you think, but
never.
That's not always totally true. I was always somewhat on board with synchronizing it or choreographing it to a degree. The only problem with some of that is again, sometimes I can really tell when something's choreographed and it turns me off a little bit.
For most people, really love that. And I tried getting us to choreograph a lot.
Yeah.
And it never really worked through.
Yeah.
But I am big on that because Steel Panther does that a lot. And no matter how cheesy it is, it looks sweet.
Sweet, yeah.
Warrant used to do it back in like the early 80s where they'd all like slide up front on their knees and like do something like this or whatever. It looks sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's done right, yeah. But there's times you can watch people choreograph something and it's like not done well. You know what I mean?
It's probably not the fact that they're choreographing something at that point. It's probably the people doing it.
It could be either, I would say.
Because if you don't believe in what you're doing with the choreograph, it looks bad.
And but at the same time, if you're doing like just this broad choreographing and it doesn't really match the energy of the music, you're gonna have a problem. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole thing. Like there's so many people out there, like even in Houston, they'd be like, well, we just choreograph in, you know, five. If you're 5 piece, this is what we do. If you're 4 piece, this is what we do. And it's like, you know, but
yeah, I remember Dustin for a while. It was like, we need to stop having people go back and forth on stage. The singer goes back and forth and everybody else just goes up and down. I was like, yeah, and that sucks to watch. If you watch Pete Wentz running across the stage, that's cool as heck.
Yeah, and like Blink-182 does it. Yeah. I don't think they choreograph probably, but
no.
I mean, there's bands that don't. I don't think Green Day does. I don't think they choreograph much. They do a really good job of moving the right amount, though.
Yeah.
Particularly Billy, obviously. But Mike moves around when he needs to and when he doesn't. And
they're freaks, though.
Yeah, I know. They've been doing it for a really long time. That's the other thing. And I also do believe to some degree, depending on what you're playing, depending on how long you've been around, like choreographing wasn't a thing for a long time. You know, people just figured it out with practice. Choreographing, I think, obviously made sense with boy bands. It obviously made sense with pop stars and all that stuff. And I do feel like it slowly trickled down into other things.
Rightly so.
Yes and no.
I'm not saying choreograph a whole song.
Right. Well, have you ever seen, like, I don't know, did you ever watch Forever the Sickest Kids ever? Like, they basically, with the way that their stage was set up, the way that they choreographed and all that stuff, like, they were just like a boy band holding guitars.
Hell yeah.
Like they had a few good songs that were really kick ass, and then you go watch them visually, and it's just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're just like, I am not really digging this.
Yeah.
You know. And then conversely, like All American Rejects, like I would listen to their albums and think, God, this is probably gonna be like boy bandy choreographed, and then you go watch them, and they're basically a fucking punk band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like
By looking at
Yeah.
All American Rejects, you think corporate boy band.
and they are not.
No.
It's pretty crazy. And they don't choreograph. I don't
No.
think. Not much if they do. Like so I think it just depends. I don't think it's easy to blanket it. I think it
Yeah.
really depends to some degree. And again, the other problem with choreographing, and I know what you're saying, if you have 4 or 5 people in your band that really commit to it and really make it feel real, it can be awesome. But if you have a band that's playing some type of music and like it doesn't match, or they're not feeling it, it's then going to take away from that synergy that if they were just playing and doing how they would do it.
You said buying in, it made me think, could you imagine just being like a new band and buying into like the Black Parade? Like,
Yeah, like if you were that brilliant to come up with that.
no, just buy into the fact that we're all gonna wear black eyeliner
Uh-huh.
with black marching band stuff, and we're
Yeah.
gonna be awesome. But you don't have any of like the prior success that My Chemical Romance had.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just going to the waiting room and just some like 17-year-old kids get up dressed like that, just trying?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose somewhere
I'm sure it's happened quite a
that's
bit.
probably
It's-
how some of that stuff starts, and then somebody somewhere looks at it and goes, if this is done right, it could really
Yeah.
catch on. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I have no idea. But so I guess my original question before we got down that tangent was, what do you think, like, so you're putting a lot of do you feel some pressure in what you're doing right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine when more money's involved and you've got to quit doing this, you've got to quit working for the college, you've got to quit doing all that stuff to continue strictly your music career, because at some point that's going to be the choice you have to make, right?
Yeah.
To make it work. Do you already, you're 27, right? 28, okay, so you're 28. Do you feel like in 2 years, if like you make that commitment and you're not getting back what you want out of it and you're just scraping by, don't you think that the pressure's gonna ratchet up a million times?
Yeah.
Or
but
are you pretty confident that if you make that decision that it's going to go the way that you want it to?
I'm pretty confident with.
And then
I'm confident in the work ethic we have right now. That maybe we won't make it to big theaters or arenas, but we'll make it enough to have a comfortable life. If we keep the same work ethic and the same people don't start to get relaxed on the situation.
yeah. Does it ever worry you that somebody's gonna get a hold of you and be like, we like 3 of you, but we don't like the other 2?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talk openly with the guys about, and I have since for years, is if somebody were to come in and sign Tyler to a deal, they can immediately be like, we're not signing the band, we're signing Tyler Anthony.
Yes.
We're going to put you with musicians that are road tested,
Yeah.
people that have toured a bunch.
Yep.
And I always say you can either be upset about it and let it ruin your life, or you can be happy for your friend.
Right, yeah.
You know, because he is my best friend,
Right.
or one of them.
Wow.
And I wouldn't,
Or you think you're gonna offend me?
yeah. No, I would be more upset with myself if that were to happen and I treated it badly, because I would lose a friend. Somebody I've been so close with, compared to just being jealous.
Yeah.
And how everything kind of works for me is I can do any of my jobs now as long as I have my computer with me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I've set it up this way, is if we were to go on the road, I don't have to sacrifice
Right.
money or anything.
Anything, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's smart.
Yeah. And I'm really happy with everything I do.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of different things, but I love it.
Love it, yeah. Yeah, I just, my only point to this whole conversation is like, I think, and again, I believe this from stuff I've watched, stuff I've read. I just think that I think it's inevitable that at some point, let's just say Tyler Anthony makes it so far, right?
Mm.
Like, I think at some point, it's always going to turn into like something you have to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's going to go from something that you want to do to something you now have to do. You know what I mean?
I feel like I feel like I get what you're saying. It doesn't turn into something you have to do. I feel like at times it becomes something you have to do.
Right.
It's not constant.
Constant.
Because I know there's been times at shows where I'm like, this is more work than I want to do.
Yeah.
But I still
Yes,
show up,
but-
I do the work, and
But
I'm happy
remember what scale you're at now compared to the scale it's going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that, like, I don't think people can always comprehend that scale up, or if you're going the wrong way, down. You know what I mean?
When you talk about scaling up, people only really think about the money that's in it for them for scaling up. Bigger shows, bigger paychecks, but
Right.
not really, because
Yeah.
more hands,
Uh-huh.
more equipment, more things.
Thanks. Yeah.
So it's more of like, what do you want to get out
Out
of
of
it?
it, yeah,
You know, and also at a certain point, like, not everybody needs to be paid the same.
Same, yes, right. And I don't want to interrupt you too much here, but like the I think the kind of the parallel you're making, where you're talking about like scaling up, more people, more hands, more thing, but like it's it's no different. Like it's in increments, right? So it's like you're like, if you're a really large band in this case, you're gonna be really busy for 18 months, and then you're gonna get some time off, right? But you're going to have to be busy again for 18 months. You know that's coming,
Yeah.
whether you want it to or not.
And
right?
it's not like you're busy for 18 months. You're busy for 30 months. Just there's 12 months of writing an album, studio work.
Yeah. Well, unless you're not doing, I mean,
Yeah.
plenty of bands tour without doing it for years in between
Yeah.
albums. But yeah, you're right. And then like that's the trade-off that I sometimes think people don't understand, is like, okay, like when you're working your 5 days a week, 9 to 5,
Yeah.
you're getting all that out slowly over a continuous time period, versus when you're doing something more like what we're discussing, you are immersed in it.
Yeah.
You will do nothing else but that.
Well,
I'm
it's
same for professional athlete. You know, all those things. Like when it's going on, you're like, your real amount of time off, you in your head, you're gonna think like, oh my god, I'm gonna have all this time off to do